You know, we talk endlessly about boomers, millennials, and Gen Z, right? Their trends, their politics, their whole vibe. But there's this quiet, kind of forgotten generation sandwiched right in the middle. A generation whose weird habits and contradictory behaviors actually make perfect logical sense once you understand the world that made them. Today, we're going to unlock their playbook. Okay, let's get into it.
I bet you know this person. Maybe you work for them, maybe they're your parents, maybe you even see them in the mirror. They've done everything right. They climbed the ladder, their retirement accounts look great. On paper, they've won the game. And yet, they walk around with this low-grade hum of anxiety, like they're just one paycheck away from total disaster. They'll drop $5,000 at a vintage guitar, but pack a lunch every single day. They'll plan a trip around the world, but argue for an hour about a $10 streaming service. This isn't just a weird quirk. It's a clue. It's the breadcrumb trail leading us right to the heart of an entire generational mindset.
See, to understand Gen X, you have to get one thing straight. The defining emotional event of their entire youth was betrayal. Not, a personal betrayal, but something way bigger, way more corrosive. It was a betrayal by the very systems they were told to believe in. All those promises of the post-war era, be loyal to your company and it'll be loyal back. The economy always goes up. Work hard and you'll get a pension and a gold watch. All of that just crumbled into dust right in front of their eyes. And that experience shaped every single decision they would make for the rest of their lives. And it all started when they were kids. They were the original Latchkey kids, the pioneers of the empty house. I mean, millions of them walked home from school with a house key on a string around their neck, a little symbol of both freedom and, well, abandonment. They'd unlock the door to a totally silent house, make their own mac and cheese, and do their homework with only the TV for company. That daily ritual wired two really powerful, unshakable lessons deep into their brains. First, how to be radically self-reliant. And second, the quiet, kind of painful understanding that you can't always count on someone else to show up. And that lesson, it sticks. And that feeling of unreliability was just reinforced over and over and over again by the world. I mean, what's so wild about this timeline is how each crisis hit them at a uniquely vulnerable moment. As kids, they watched the idea of a stable family and economy just fracture. As teenagers, right when they're figuring out how the world works, bam, the '87 market crashes. Then they graduate college, ready to start their lives, and the whole concept of a lifelong career just evaporates because of corporate downsizing. And then, just when they're established adults in their prime, the 2008 financial crisis completely detonates their savings and home equity. It wasn't just a run of bad luck. It felt personal. The system wasn't just flawed, it felt actively hostile. So, what do you do when you're taught from your earliest memories that you can't trust the big institutions, the economy, or any of the systems that are supposed to support you? Do you just give up? No. You adapt. You become a strategist. You develop a playbook for survival. And suddenly, all those contradictory behaviors, they stop looking like quirks and start looking like a coherent, brutally logical strategy for navigating a world you know is rigged. At the very heart of this playbook is something called defensive pessimism. Now, this isn't your regular, everyday pessimism where you just think things are bad. No, this is an active, strategic pessimism. The logic is pretty simple. You imagine, in detail, every single thing that could possibly go wrong. The market's going to crash, the company will have layoffs, the project will fail. Then, you use all the anxiety from those thoughts as fuel to obsessively prepare for every single one of those outcomes. It's why they can be the most anxious about the future and, at the same time, the most consistent savers. You don't really believe your 401k will be enough, but you max it out anyway, just in case. It's a completely exhausting way to live, but it's how they've stayed afloat. And this right here just says it all. A recent study found that a staggering 70% of Gen X are terrified about retirement. Not concerned, terrified. And this is despite the fact that they have some of the highest savings rates of any generation. The numbers on the spreadsheet say they're doing great, but the feeling in their gut, a feeling that's been sharpened by a lifetime of betrayal, tells them it could all vanish in a heartbeat. They've just been burned way too many times to believe in a happy ending they didn't build themselves, brick by painful, anxious brick. So here's the absolute key. There was this fundamental transfer of trust. Their parents' generation, They believed in the institution. The company was like family. You give it loyalty, it gives you security, a career, a pension, the whole deal. Gen X saw that was a lie. So they made a huge shift. They pulled their faith out of external organizations and put it into the one thing nobody could ever take from them, their own competence. Their resume isn't just a list of jobs, it's a portfolio of skills. They don't believe a company will save them, they believe being useful will save them.
And this mindset is the exact reason Gen X pretty much invented the side hustle. Long before it was a cool lifestyle brand for millennials, Gen X came up with it out of sheer terror. They literally stood in their cubicles and watched coworkers with 20, 30 years of loyalty get walked to the door with a cardboard box. And the lesson was burned into their brains. Never, ever, ever depend on a single source of income. It's a single point of failure. So they started building what I like to call escape tunnels, a side gig doing web design, a rental property, consulting on the weekends. This was never about passion or finding their bliss. It was about insurance. It was a financial fire escape. This radical self-reliance totally rewired their relationship with authority. I mean, after watching leaders fail them time and time again, politically, economically, they learned a really powerful lesson. A fancy title means nothing. Power does not equal wisdom. So they don't care where you are on the org chart. They care if you actually know what you're doing. They will ignore a C-suite executive who just speaks in buzzwords, but they will follow a junior engineer who has the data to hell and back. If you're competent, they'll be the most loyal allies you will ever have. And if you're not, well, they won't fight you. They'll just quietly disengage and find a way to work around you.
And all of this leads to their seemingly bizarre rules about money. They save obsessively because they know the whole system can just fail at any moment, but they'll also spend a ton on experiences like concerts and travel because they know things can fail too. A house can lose its value, stocks can crash, but nobody can repossess the memory of seeing your favorite band in 1994, right? They'll take on a huge 30-year mortgage because it's predictable, it's controllable debt with a finish line. But they avoid credit card debt like the plague because it's chaotic, it's endless, and it's a trap. And yeah, they absolutely still keep a file cabinet with paper records, not because they're old-fashioned, but because they literally helped build the digital world and know exactly how easily digital promises can just evaporate. It's all about control, redundancy, and owning things that can't be taken away from you. But here's the thing. This whole survivalist mindset, this fortress of self-reliance, that only tells half the story. That's the story of the average Gen Xer. For the most ambitious ones, the ones fighting to win in those cutthroat worlds of finance or tech or media, survival was never going to be enough. They had to win. And for that, they needed a completely different playbook. The philosopher Montaigne once wrote, "Deceit has 1,000 masks." And wow, that quote just perfectly sets the stage for the psychological armor that these elite Xers developed. See, it wasn't enough to just build walls to protect themselves. To actually win in that hostile world, they had to learn to move through it unseen, to wear whatever mask the situation called for. And this strategy has a name: chameleonism. It's not just a defense mechanism, it's a competitive tactic. It's a response born from the intense pressure and anxiety of a hyper-competitive, winner-take-all world. This is the secret playbook for those who looked at the rigged game and decided the only way to win was to become a master of disguise. So what is it, really? Well, sociologist Bernard Rosen basically defines it as the essential strategy for a high-stakes world. When you're terrified that your competitors are gaining on you, you don't just work harder. You put on a mask to hide what you're really up to. You adjust mirrors to make other people see a distorted version of reality, one where your wins are magnified and your failures are someone else's fault. You pretend to be whatever the situation requires, an ally, a team player, a humble servant, all to gain a strategic advantage. Now, this kind of behavior doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's bred in a very specific environment. Rosen calls it a cutthroat economy with no room for losers, where intense anxiety is just the baseline. It's a world that preaches teamwork and collaboration in the mission statement, but in reality, it only rewards ruthless individual victory. And in that arena, you can't fight openly. That's seen as disruptive, right? Not a culture fit. So the fight goes underground. Subterfuge and artful deception become the weapons of choice. Okay, so this is the crucial distinction. The everyday Gen X survivalist is private and cautious as a defense. They're building walls to keep the world out. The chameleon, on the other hand, is actively using deception as an offense. They are masters of misinformation, of managing their image. Their privacy isn't a shield, it's a cloak. It's a calculated strategy designed to confuse competitors and make sure they always stay one step ahead. It's not about hiding from the world, it's about manipulating it. So when you boil it all down, you've got two very different responses that come from the exact same wound. This core belief that the world cannot be trusted. The survivalist looks at that world and builds a fortress of self-reliance and defensive pessimism to just get through whatever comes next. The chameleon looks at that same world and learns to change colors, to use masks and mirrors not just to survive, but to conquer. One is a shield built for defense. The other is a hidden dagger designed for the attack.
But whether they operate as survivalists or chameleons, there's a really powerful metaphor that captures the essential, often overlooked role of this entire generation. They are the bridge.
I mean, just think about it. This slide really captures their whole paradox. They grew up in the gap after the old social contracts had all shattered, but before our new hyper-connected digital world had really formed. They're the generation that remembers life before the internet, but actually built the world that runs on it. At work, they're the translators between boomer expectations and millennial ambitions. They're fiercely, radically independent, yet they're the ones you can quietly depend on to just get the job done, no drama. They don't ask for credit, they don't post about their grind, they just quietly hold everything together. Because that's what they've been doing since they were 8 years old, letting themselves into an empty house. Which leaves us with a final, fascinating, and maybe a little unsettling question. As Gen X now moves into leadership positions across business, politics, and culture, what happens next? What does a world look like when it's run by a generation whose core psychological trait is a deep, profound distrust of the very systems they now control? Do they try to burn it all down? Or do they, like pragmatic survivalists, just try to fortify it with redundancies and escape hatches, preparing it for that next crisis they feel is always just around the corner?
So, I really want to know what you think. Do these ideas ring true for you? Do you see these traits in yourself, or maybe in the people around you? Tell us about a time you went full survivalist and built a spreadsheet for a worst-case scenario that never happened, or a time you had to be a chameleon to navigate a tricky situation at work. Share your story down in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to read them.
And hey, if this explainer helped untangle a psychological knot for you, please subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden logic that shapes our worlds. Your money habits, your anxieties, none of it is random. And hitting that like button really does help other people find this content and maybe finally understand this quiet, complicated, and absolutely fascinating generation. Thanks for watching.